Good morning. It is, oh gosh, what is today? It's Tuesday, September 13. It's day 14 of the September series where I upload a video every single day. Today, I'm planning to listen to the roughest draft while I am working. And then if I really like it, or, depending on how far into it I get, I'll either finish this after work or I'll dip my little toes into Upgrade by Blake Crouch. This, I believe, is a second chance romance between two authors. 4 years ago, they had a best-selling novel, but they had a falling out, probably because they had feelings that they weren't supposed to have. I think he was engaged at the time. Anyway, they have to complete a contractual agreement to write a second book together. She's engaged now, and she's engaged to like a dipshit, and it's the kind of dipshit where it's almost annoying how awful he is, just because I don't know. I like a little nuance in my mean characters, because you need to believe that our main character would still be with them even if they were a dipshit. But I'm excited for her to leave his ass. I'm about to start chapter 6. They haven't had any interaction in the present day yet, and that's the best part for second chance romances for me. Just that first initial reaction to each other after time spent apart. I've seen the roughest draft compared to the Book Lovers. A lot of people say it's better than Book Lovers, which makes me excited. I think I gave this 3 stars, but I really liked the fact that they were in the book publishing world. I thought that was really fun. And then recently I read 7 Days in June, which I also gave 3 stars, but again, I liked that they were authors. Plus the tension in here was great. So yes, very excited for this. Upgrade, if I get to it today. I believe this is like a sci-fi thriller or sci-fi suspense novel. The only thing I know about it is that a man upgrades his brain, and that I think there are some consequences to that. I'm definitely excited to read more, because other than that, I have no idea. Guys, I'm at the 25% mark, and I am already so down bad for this book. I am loving it. It's very meta because they are writing a book. And so they say, I'd like to play with a formal device, something with timelines where we compare their early relationship to the present. So of course, this ends up doing that. We get flashbacks to 4 years ago, I think, on the last book that they were working on. So that in their last book, they talked about this affair that was happening, which might be indicative of either what was happening at the time in their real lives, or just speculation, or feelings that they wish had happened. And then now they're talking about a divorce, and it's sort of the divorce of them. Ugh. But then I'm wondering if this meta type of writing is going to get a little over the top, because now they have like an editor or one of their friends saying, we need to believe that there was ever love in their relationship. We need to see it in glimpses. Otherwise, there's no anguish to this divorce and the story collapses. So I don't know if it's gonna get a little too much, like, okay, come on. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying it. And you know what I enjoy even more? Is the fact that the people who wrote this book are a married couple. So it feels so real and genuine, and I'm having so much fun. Also, in present day, they are haters. Like, they hate each other. So it's haters to lovers at this point. And they are being so petty and childish, but in the most entertaining way. So they're writing this book, and they're writing at the point where their fictional characters are in peak divorce and they hate each other. And so Nathan and Katrina, our main characters, are writing each other in the book. They're just talking about all the annoying shit that they hate about each other so much. And in that way, it's kind of like 7 Days in June, because these two wrote each other in each other's books. Obviously not as dramatically. This is pretty petty, but it's very funny. As a romance book, I know where this is going, and it's just like the impending, I'm just so excited. I will come back at the halfway mark and let you know how I'm liking it then. Hello, I'm on my lunch break. I have an old school Lunchable and Dr. Pepper, for those of you that are curious. I'm just about to start chapter 25, almost halfway through, still having so much fun with this. Which makes me nervous, because I love the beginnings and the first halves of romance usually, and then because I don't like conflict, I'm not a conflict kind of person, I tend to not like the last half as much, mostly because there's not too much believability in a lot of the third act conflicts that mostly have to go into romances, especially, traditionally published romances. The thing here, though, is like we can see the conflict coming a mile away. So I might be just fine with it, exploring everything. So I have a bunch of notes here that I was taking while I was working because I couldn't just stop and, talk or think about it too much. So I wanted to write down. So let me try to decipher these with you. First of all, I think my favorite part about this is that there are so many layers and there's so many things I'm liking within each layer. So let's break it down. We have the present timeline where they're in their haters to lovers trope. There is so much tension that is like them hating each other that is really revving up to the sort of sexual tension that they're repressing and romantic tension and how much they love each other, and it's just everything to me. I now understand why people love enemies to lovers. It's taken me this long to figure it out. But I think I like it so much because of the other layer, which is the past timeline. This trope is best friends to lovers, which is my favorite trope. There's also a weird bit of forbidden love because Nathan in the past is engaged. So I'm enjoying the present timeline of them being haters to lovers because really underneath it all, they are still best friends to lovers. And then the other layer, which is this surprise layer I was not anticipating, and I feel kind of bad for having it because it's not even a part of the book. It's just the fact that I know that a married couple who are in love are writing this. And so I'm thinking about them writing these scenes, of them writing these scenes. Oh.
The woman was too stunned to speak.
I am fangirling so hard for this book right now. The tension of having writers writing a sex scene. Wait, no. Okay, let's go through the layers here. A married couple in real life is writing a book about a couple writing a sex scene, and then they flash back to them writing another. Okay, so that's not making sense. I'm giving myself a headache. But the joy I'm having of these fictional writers writing a sex scene, in the past, it's funny because there is this burgeoning sexual tension between them. And then in the present timeline, it's really funny watching them do this because it's uncomfortable, because something has clearly happened, most likely romantically, not sexually. So them being so awkward about it in the present timeline is just so fun. The sort of meta-ness of it, the life imitating art, is getting a little heavy-handed now. It is a little bit on the nose, but at the same time, it's this weird communication that they're having with each other because they refuse to communicate or talk about why they're no longer friends and why obviously they're not lovers either. So I am kind of at a tug of war here with whether or not the meta-ness is too much or it's just perfect because it's their catalyst to communicate. Is that the proper use of catalyst? Anyway, I'm gonna eat my little Lunchable and I'm gonna read some more of this book, and I think I'm just gonna update you when I finish it. No. Okay, wait, in just a couple chapters, something very silly happened. And now I don't know if I dissociated from the story, but it's suddenly kind of annoying that they won't just communicate. And I feel like it's taking me out of the story because up until now, it's felt really genuine, and now it's getting a little silly and contrived. So I hope we get out of this immediately.
Blue dude. Blue moon, kinda mysterious.
Okay guys, I finished the book, and I definitely didn't enjoy the second half as much as the first half, but I have yet to read a romance book where that hasn't been true. So that's mostly a me thing, but I do have some thoughts. I feel like as a couple, they're very, first of all, convincing in the first half that they're even friends. However, I feel like as time goes on, you're still really rooting for them to be together, but the more they're together, the less personality they have individually. I wrote my little notes, their personalities are melting. I don't know how to explain that other than they weren't like separate characters anymore. They were together, which is both good and bad. Like, I will remember this couple more than other couples, but as individual characters, I could probably just forget about them. I was infuriated by the third act conflict, as I am in most. It's really hard to do a third act conflict that's really convincing, in my opinion. There are definitely exceptions. Without spoiling anything, it's just surrounding lack of communication in general, which is pretty standard for conflicts in human nature as well. But Nathan, there was one specific part of his personality that really irked me, and it irked Katrina as well. And I want to tell you like quotes and specifics, but I don't want to spoil anything. It's just the fact that, you know, he has to write down his feelings like through code, and they talk about that a lot, how like their writing is code between each other, and it's like this secret messaging. And for a while that's fun, and then it gets old. And I think Katrina felt the same. She literally, after he wrote her an angry little note or letter, like some sort of fiction, she just wrote on it, "Imagine how different our lives would be if you could speak your feelings instead of only writing them." And I totally agree. So yes, definitely one of the most exciting beginnings and first halves of a book. Very strong, very fun. But ultimately, I think I'm gonna give this a 3.5. I am so excited to read more of this couple's work. You know what's really cute though, is that the dedication to their book, it says this one could only be for each other. I feel like I'm more invested in their personal relationship, which is just nosy of me, than this fictional one. They're high school sweethearts. It's said in their acknowledgement that I think this is their debut adult romance, which is very impressive. That makes me like more impressed after the fact. And it gets me even more excited because I saw a couple weeks ago that they're coming out with a new book. I think it's either late this year or early next year. It's called Do I Know You? When a couple starts to feel like they're married to a stranger, a flirtatious game of pretend becomes a spark they need to reignite their relationship. It's a couple on their 5-year anniversary. They're kind of like sizzling out. They're at a hotel bar and someone thinks that they're single and introduces them to each other. They just pretend to be strangers. So they just role play for this entire sort of vacation that they have. But when their scintillating game of role playing ends, will they still feel the heat? You know what this reminds me of? In Modern Family, when Claire and Phil do that on their, I think it's Valentine's Day or their anniversary. Oh, I can't wait for this book. Anyway, we're gonna move on to Upgrade by Blake Crouch, a very different genre of book. Like I said, I don't really know too much about this except for there is sci-fi in it. I read a couple pages yesterday, and it is, I think, in a either futuristic or just another alternate universe where gene editing is a federal crime, which means that gene editing is like an actual thing. Maybe it is an actual thing and I'm just, you know, not in the science realm. I'm gonna read 25% and I will get back to you and tell you more about this book. Guys, I'm loving this so far. I have read up to page 85. I'm about 1/4 of the way through, and wow. First of all, I want to say how readable this is, despite the fact there's a bunch of random ass science terms being thrown left and right. Genome sequences that honestly I just skimmed, like 2 pages of these capital letters. So I'm gonna quickly synopsize. I keep saying that word and it just doesn't sound right. I'm gonna quickly summarize what's happening and tell you what I'm really liking, because I'm not disliking anything so far, even like the weird science shit that I don't understand. If you wanna go in not knowing anything though, I'm not gonna give spoilers obviously, but if you just wanna go in like as a surprise, which has been really fun by the way, you might wanna skip this part, but just know that I really enjoyed this. Okay, so the basic of what is going on is that our main character, oh my God, I forgot his name. Our main character, Logan, is sort of like a police genetic detective. I don't know if he's detective, but he's like a part of this agency called, I think, the GPA, and they monitor people using gene frequencing or gene editing in a bad way. So like people who can use DNA or, I don't know this shit, okay? They're using stuff to fuck shit up, either for personal gain, like some kid's getting bullied and he makes an antibiotic resistant flesh-eating bacteria to infect a bully at school, and then some people are trying to like cure their kid's cancer, but then he ended up getting infected in his frontal lobe and becoming psychotic and killing himself and them, not in that order. But then there's like the potential for mass destruction, which actually did happen. A while ago, there was this huge sort of epidemic. It was called the Great Starvation. And guess whose fault it sort of was? It was Logan's mom, who was a scientist. It sounds like it was an accident, at least up to here. They tell us right off the bat, or Logan tells us right off the bat, that even though he's this sort of police type person, that in his heart, he always wanted to be a geneticist, a scientist. So anyway, in the very beginning, he is with his little detective partner, and they raid this house, and they go into this basement, and there's this huge explosion. Well, maybe it wasn't so huge, but there was an explosion, and he was infected with something. They quarantine him in a little plastic bubble in an ICU, and 14 days later, he's cleared to go. Nothing seems that weird. But then, as he's back in his normal life, I think a month and a half goes by or something like that, and he's starting to notice things. First of all, his body's aching, and he goes to the doctor, and it finds out that his bones are like becoming denser. But then the cool shit he starts becoming aware of, and that's like all in his brain. So he can suddenly beat his daughter at chess, and she's like beaten him 100 times. And then he could start remembering memories and like specific passages, like he sort of had photographic memory. And then the coolest one, and that I could really use, honestly, is that he could like speed read. He could read a page of really dense medical text or scientific text in like 30 seconds. He was turning the page, which is just, I want that. And he could also like be talking to his wife and having an actual conversation with her, like not spacing out while he was typing up a report with like perfect clarity. So he can just, he's pretty much just perfect. He can multitask, he can read fast, he can beat his 14-year-old daughter at chess, which, you know, maybe you could too. And then, something wild happens, which is very thrilling. There's like a helicopter outside, so if you can hear that, I'm so sorry. It must be just like circling up there. It's probably looking for me because I just read so much today. They're like, oh my God, has her genomes been frequenced? First, I want to talk about the writing in general. I really like how, first of all, like I said, how readable it is, but also how information is being handed to us. Logan's just telling us things sort of off the cuff, and it's not even to us. It's like we're just being landed in his life. So just in a kind of off the cuff manner that he tells us just that his mom made this most dangerous DNA, whatever. And then in another sentence, he's talking about his boss, and he said, I was glad to see him. I'd applied to work for the GPA straight out of prison. And he'd never mentioned anything about being like imprisoned or anything like that. So I like that. It's not being like fed to us. It's surprising, it's keeping me on my toes, but it also feels more genuine than just like an info dump. But honestly, there are a lot of parts in here that I'm so interested in. First of all, the things that are happening to Logan, the escalation of these superpowers he's sort of getting. That's really fascinating. But then there's this mystery of who set this shit up. There's also the aspect of that this is in the future. And so reading about not just science shit that's gone down, but also the state of the environment, the state of the socioeconomical, that's not a word, whatever, just the starvation, how things cost a lot of money, just like getting takeout, going out to restaurants, but also like weird inventions, like a lie detector test that is way more accurate, although I feel like you could still lie in that shit because it's all about breathing and heart rate. But then the non-scientific part of me, actually that is all of me, is really fascinated by this sort of personal life of Logan. So we have his family, so we see that he's really close to his wife and his daughter. He has a partner at work that I feel like we're gonna end up loving all these characters. But then we have the complicated family history, and I'm a sucker for that. So yeah, there's so many pieces in the air right now, and all of them are interesting me, despite being so bad at science. Science is always my worst subject, although I was really good at physics, but that was more because there was math in it, and I love math. But anyway, really enjoying this. I'll definitely be reading more tomorrow. I kind of want to read more tonight, but I need to start editing this video and then get to bed. I feel like this is not a book I could listen to audibly, just because I'm so unfamiliar with all of these terms, and I do like being able to look back very quickly and being like, oh yeah, okay, this is the DNA thing that his mom, I feel like I'm just gonna have to be referencing a lot of stuff in here. I'm almost done talking about this. I just want to say a couple of the things that I laughed at. First of all, when he's in this quarantine bubble after being exploded on, he's having like a fever, and he's just saying, I am the virus, I am the virus. And for some reason I cracked up at that. But then just thinking about the quarantine in general, and also the fact that he and his daughter play chess, all I kept thinking about was Blake Crouch at home during COVID watching The Queen's Gambit. And I'm thinking like, that's his inspiration for this book. Okay, stats for today. I read 389 pages. In total for the September series, I've read 3,401 pages. And I've finished 10 books, which is just, I don't usually read this much, and I have a theory that reading more makes you want to read more. Like today, all I wanted to do was read. But I had great books to read, and I had so much fun today. So that's it. If you've read these, please let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Also, highly recommend the audiobook for this. It was very good, very good. And those of you that have read this, if you've read the audiobook or if you've listened to the audiobook, is it good or is it confusing? Please let me know. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Bye.